And experts say the Canada Post strike is going to have a big impact on how consumers shop.
With online shopping, anything and everything is just a simple click away. But retail expert Bruce Winder says this year is different.
There's a lot of things in play, and most of them are not good.
Boy, oh boy, oh boy. Today we got another one with Justin Trudeau's HST GST tax break. And what exactly are you getting a break from? As well as we have Postal Canada is also on a strike, but it's looking like this season consumers aren't going to be looking to Postal Canada, and actually for the next seasons going forward, they might actually look for other postal services to get their packages, leaving Postal Canada in a tight spot for this year.
Black Friday madness just won't happen this year in Canada, as consumers are still cautious about spending and are more willing to thrift gifts and use ultra-low-cost international sites like Temu. To top it off, Canada Post's postal workers' strike is adding another layer of complexity to Black Friday. Winder says small businesses who use Canada Post to mail parcels will be hit the hardest, adding that consumers are looking elsewhere to get their packages on time.
And for anybody who couldn't see this coming, we live in a digital world. No offense to the postal services, but postal and delivery parcels are kind of the thing of the past. We've kind of moved on to doing things more digitally owned, or Amazon. There's many businesses that have came up that are using faster, more efficient delivery services to get to their customers and consumers more than just a postal service. So I think them doing this, there's a fine line of where they should have went and how far they should have went. Completely oust yourselves out of a job and possibly a future job is kind of a bad bargain when you look at it.
The Canada Post strike has forced consumers to look at other companies, bigger companies.
Bigger companies who use different couriers. The strike is now on day 12, and Canada Post says it's down 11 million parcels since the job action began. That number increasing every day. Meanwhile, the union representing the postal workers says, while Canada Post is doing everything it can to portray itself as fair and reasonable, the reality is this round of bargaining has been an all-out attack on the rights and benefits postal workers have fought for decades to achieve.
I completely understand that you feel like you're fighting for your rights, you're fighting for your future, you're fighting for your truth, because you're living your truth. Like, the cost of living in Canada is extremely high. It's unfair for most people to work every day and still not be able to afford to live. I understand that completely, as I live in Canada and a Canadian citizen. Though we need to have some type of common sense plan of where the cutoff is, what exactly we're looking to do, and what is the realistic negotiation that we're going to come to terms with so that our business can move forward, so that our wages can move forward, and so that we can move forward. Because at some point, you're ruining your company name, you're ruining your company reliability, especially in the time right around Christmas.
It's more bad news for the Canadian economy. This strike has probably put Canada Post on its deathbed. It probably puts Canada Post on its last legs. I don't know if there's a compelling argument to, from a business perspective, to keep operating a company at a loss.
Canada Post has lost more than $3 billion since 2018.
All right. And let's move right along to the next video that we have with Justin Trudeau's GST, HST, and what exactly are you getting a break on that you're already not paying?
How much money am I actually going to save? Because one guy tells you this.
We're going to remove the GST, HST from groceries. 100% of groceries. All groceries.
And the other guy tells you this.
Today, what we have is a 2-month temporary tax trick.
And you just love for someone to do the math for you. Well, I did. And I found there's something very important that the government isn't mentioning about this tax break that undercuts how much you may actually get back.
The tax break takes effect December 15th, and already people are finding little mischievous things the Liberals have put into the legislation that kind of don't make sense and that we've already not been paying. As far as our PST in certain provinces, we already don't pay it. So for the Liberals to introduce a GST, HST cut, it feels as if you're trying to once again trick Canadians by giving us free money that we're once again going to have to pay back in the long run in the future, as there's 18 million Canadians and $250 to 18 million Canadians is $4.5 billion in Canadian deficit.
So to understand where the government's promise might fall short of expectations, you first have to understand how the promise even works.
For 2 months, Canadians are going to get a real break on everything they do.
Starting December 14th and running until February 15th, so that's 2 full months, the federal government is removing the GST on a whole basket of goodies. So that's 5% off prepared foods that you might buy in a grocery store, like salads and sandwiches, snacks like chips, candy, chocolate, fresh baked goods, beer, wine, and premixed drinks under 7% alcohol, all restaurant meals, kids' clothes, shoes, hats, gloves, toys like dolls, Lego, stuffed animals, board games, video games, books, and applications. You first have to understand how the promise even works.
For 2 months, Canadians are going to get a real break on everything they do.
Starting December 14th and running until February 15th, so that's 2 full months, the federal government is removing the GST on a whole basket of goodies. So that's 5% off prepared foods that you might buy in a grocery store, like salads and sandwiches, snacks like chips, candy, chocolate, fresh baked goods, beer, wine, and premixed drinks under 7% alcohol, all restaurant meals, kids' clothes, shoes, hats, gloves, toys like dolls, Lego, stuffed animals, board games, video games, books, newspapers, Christmas trees, car seats, diapers.
I get they're trying to throw middle class a bone, but this is not the way you do it if you haven't calculated which provinces don't pay the PST originally, and also the specific amount of everything that's on that list that we already don't pay high taxes for anyway. So if you bought groceries for $65, which I was seeing in one of my comments, and you're only saving $3, is that really a big help for a tax cut? Or is that kind of just a slap in the face? Especially when you tell us that this is supposed to help us get a break on everything for the Christmas season and for all of our expenses. $3 is not going to help my hydro bill. $3 is not going to help my mortgage bill. So the Liberals need to find out a more common sense, more reliable, more effective plan to help Canadians.
But it's too big a list to describe exhaustively because every category also has kind of weird exceptions. Like, you wouldn't think kids' clothing would include baby bibs, but it does. For shoes, there's a hard limit on how big they're allowed to be to qualify. You'd think books is a pretty simple category, but it's not. And the food section, well, let's just say it gets very specific. Even video games only count if you're buying the physical media, not if you're buying the game online. So, like I said, it's a big list, but you can think of it in 2 broad categories. Food, virtually all food, and a bunch of kids stuff. Clothes, toys, diapers, car seats. And then Christmas trees, just because. And wait, it gets better, because while the GST applies across the country, so that's a 5% federal tax that will disappear for 2 months, there's a bonus reduction in 5 provinces.
All tax-free, removing the GST and HST.
Yes, in Ontario and all of Atlantic Canada, where the GST is already combined with the provincial sales tax, you get that HST removed. So in Ontario's case, that's 13% when you combine the two, and in Atlantic Canada, the HST is even higher at 15%.
The government estimates that people in provinces with the HST will have like a doubled savings, right? So there's quite a disparity between what Canadians in those HST provinces will be saving in the 2-month period between December and February and what people in the other provinces will be saving.
Any Canadian who knows what's going on knows that this $250 tax break is just another way for the Liberals to buy votes. They're trying to throw you a bone, but it's really throwing you a trick right after Halloween, right before Christmas. Because realistically, if you already get your PST off in most provinces, 5 provinces, the big major 5 provinces that you're doing it for is how you'll benefit by giving them more of a break than you do the other provinces. But the big five that you need to win an election, it's just so funny how those are the provinces that you're catering the most to.
So my wife and I live in Ontario, and she bought shoes for the kids recently. Here's the receipt. Note the cost, $32.96 plus $6.08 in shipping. If I was already paying 13% in HST, so $32.96 plus $6.08 equals $39.04 times 13%, I should be paying $5.08 in tax. But I didn't pay that. I only paid $1.95. Why is that? Because, and I'll show you the math, so $1.95 divided by $39.04 times 100. That shows me that I paid almost exactly 5% in tax. So I paid the GST, but not the full HST, because in Ontario, you already don't pay any provincial tax on kids' shoes or diapers. I bought these last night, and here's the receipt, $15.99, and the HST was 80 cents. That's 5% tax, not 13%. And
The check hasn't even gone out yet, and already we are starting to see the default and the tricks that the Liberals have already made that aren't helping Canadians. It's actually a slap in the face and kind of playing on our intelligence of how we know how to do math and how we know how to operate our taxes as far as wages, as far as funds.
in Ontario, it was already the case that things like books, kids' clothing and footwear, car seats, booster seats, diapers, newspapers, they were all already exempt from the provincial portion of the HST.
That's going to do it for this one. Thank you for coming out, community. Thank you for coming out, Canucks. Thank you for coming out, world. So as we move forward in Canada with the new GST HST cut that starts on December 14th, beware of the deficits that are to come in the future, as the Liberals and NDP have already signed off on it. So anybody who earned under $150,000 in the year of 2015 will be receiving a check for $250. Nonetheless, as Pierre has said, and as other economic professionals have said, that this is a very, very bad way to help strengthen an economy. Anytime you give out free money, inflation rises at the exact same rate. $4.5 billion, Canadians. Until next time, see you in the comments.